Welcome back to Beyond My Crisis. I'm your co-host, Ron Rossnick.
And I'm Vivian Gaspar. We're here today to help everyone who's been very unhappy with what they've done up until now. Are you in your 30s, 40s, or perhaps even 50s, and you made the decision you just don't want to live this way with this career for the rest of your life? Here with us today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Stacey Plichta, who is a CUNY College professor of public health, and she's here to explain how does someone go about changing their careers in relationship with their college education midlife when they're no longer in their teens or 20s. Welcome to the show, Doctor, and please let us know, how does someone go about doing this really massive change in their life?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And the answer is you go about doing the change slowly. That it's really important to ease back into school if you haven't been there for a while. The first thing to remember is that you're not alone. There are over 8 million students aged 35 or older going back to college each year. That's about 20% of the college population.
That's significant. Wow.
So when you're on campus, you're going to see other people that look like you.
So don't be shy. Don't feel it's like you're too old for college. No one's too old to learn.
Absolutely not. My oldest student was 79 years old.
My goodness,
fantastic doctoral
wonderful.
student.
And he or she was a doctoral student?
He was a doctoral student. He is a lifelong learner. One of the many reasons to go back to school, obviously you can improve yourself intellectually, you can advance in your career. It's a great way to change careers. But it also keeps you interested in the world, and it makes you more interesting. And that's
learning in life is a great asset.
Yeah.
They say something about the difference between wealthy people, people who have money, and people who don't, is education.
That's very true. The amount of money that you can make on average rises dramatically with education, and it's pretty much linear. So for example, somebody without a high school education is going to make significantly less than somebody with a high school education. Getting an associate's moves you up the economic ladder. Get a bachelor's and you'll make about $22,000 a year more than someone with just a high school degree. And so on. A master's will further that, a doctorate will further that even more.
And these averages, they're not just W-2 full-time income earners. These are people that could have their own businesses. It's a statistic throughout the entire country and the workplace.
It's a statistic related to your educational level across all job types.
All job types.
What happens if someone's in their profession and they think that, or is it true, that by moving up the next step, let's say for example, getting your doctorate or even a master's, that you're saying that even if you stay in your same profession, that will still increase your salary?
Absolutely. Every bit of education you have opens another door. Every degree opens another door. So if someone is in lower level management, for example, in city government, and they get that next degree, they go from an associate's to a bachelor's, they may be eligible for higher level management. If they want to be a deputy director or a director of an agency, they may need a master's for that. So every degree, every bit of education opens another door and allows people to move forward.
What do you find, having taught so many people in non-teens or 20s in the beginning stages, is usually someone's obstacle? Do they ever come to you with what their challenges are when they're your students?
Absolutely. And there are several obstacles. The main one is time. The majority of my students are working full-time. Most of them have families. Many are responsible for either young children, older parents, or both. So they're trying to fit in their schooling, they're working full-time, they're rushing home to get some supper on the table, then they're rushing to my class.
Is there something that they should know to manage that, like childcare, aftercare? Colleges sometimes do that. What can they do to help them with their time?
There are a few things they can do, and the biggest thing is to build a support network. And the other challenge is fear, and a support network can help with both. So enlisting their family to help. Some of my students made homework a family affair. So after dinner, clear the kitchen table. The kids were doing their homework and my students were doing their own homework. And it was really good for their children to see their moms and dads also learning, also studying, and also struggling a little.
Right, it's great to lead by example.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, you want to say that?
Lead by example, that's
Okay.
precisely
Exactly.
it.
The other thing is to build support within other students. So to not be shy about contacting other students in your class. Get a study buddy. So if you have to miss a class because a child is sick or because you had to take care of your mom, you can get the notes from them and offer to do the same for them.
So you're saying that you're not too old to be in a study group just because you're in your 30s or 40s or so on.
You're never too old. In fact, you might be really valuable to the other students. A lot of people, when they go back to school, they forget they're coming with a lot of strengths. They forget that if you're coming back to school, you're coming with all those skills from your career, with everything you've learned across your life. And it's important for you to think about, how can I apply those skills to what I'm doing now?
Some people, older people, I even think about this, I'm a little intimidated to go back to school because, kids have their brain set for doing college work. The scholastic thing, it's a different thought process. How do adults adapt to the thought process of the college learning mode?
There's a few things. It's always a little hard at the start, so I would tell people not to be discouraged. But older adults are also more patient. They understand that you don't get the reward right away, that reading a chapter and having to read something several times might be less frustrating to someone who's older because they've got life experience and they know that some things take hard work. That's something younger people are learning. The other thing someone can do if they're worried about going back is you start slow. Take one class at night and pick something an area that you're comfortable with so that the class itself won't be so hard for you. Because you'll have plenty of time to take those hard classes later, but ease into it.
Affordability?
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
I know you would, right?
It's so handy to reach each other's minds.
Yes.
So,
How does someone, when they maybe still paying off student debt from their first time going to college, maybe up into their bachelor's degree, is it challenging to qualify for additional student loans or another way to get that money? Perhaps it might be paid by their employer if they're currently employed.
There are a lot of creative ways that you can help to pay for school. The first way is to pick an affordable school. So your best bet is a community college or a public four-year school, depending on what degree you're going for. The tuition levels, particularly for community college, are much more affordable.
what about online? I see a lot of coursework online.
That was going to be my next
Okay. my big answer to that.
We really do this impromptu. There's no list of questions here.
It's just
great.
we just share a brain, that's all, and it just helps.
All right. So there are two things about online. If we're talking about an online course offered by a reputable,
Accredited.
There's a big
Right.
difference. Public institution versus an online course offered by a private for-profit college. They're two very different animals.
How do you find out which is which? When you see commercials, you do have traditional colleges who have commercials
Yes.
on TV, and then you have the other. How can you tell
And
the difference?
they talk about getting a degree and it's going to be cheap. Should we be wary of
Yes.
that kind of?
So I'm going to take a minute here, if I can, and talk about why the for-profit colleges are not your best option. How to tell they're for-profit? They have to tell you. You can look on their website. For-profit colleges are run by educational businesses whose goal is to make money. They make most of their money from student loans, and they're really, really good at admitting students. They're really, really good at helping students to get those loans. What they're not so good at is graduating students, helping students get jobs after. And they're also really expensive because remember, you're taking out that student loan. You're going to have to pay that back whether or not you finish, whether or not you graduate. A much better option is, like I said, a public school. So community colleges, if it's a brick and mortar school, it's likely to be a public school. So every county just about has its own community college. Every state, you can look up public universities in New Jersey. If you Google that, they'll all come up.
Or in any state, right?
In
I
any
mean, we
state.
do
But
air in other areas.
Yes,
so
you could
any
publish,
state.
yeah,
But-
but I was an example.
But if I want to go back to college, I don't have to leave my home if I don't want to. I could do all of my coursework online.
Absolutely. There are online programs offered by reputable public institutions. So every community college at this point offers distance education. Every four-year public college offers it. I do recommend, though, that for your very first course, if you haven't been in school for 10 years or 20 years, it's easier to go back to school in a regular course. And there are a number of advantages to at least for your first course starting
So
that
be
way.
with other people if you have the ability to
Yes.
integrate with people, because that'll help motivate you, help make that
All of
campus connection.
Yes, all of that. So what happens when you're on campus is you build a stronger connection to your educational institution. I'm not saying to never take an online course. I'm not even saying to not do most of your work online.
Mm-hmm.
But to start, most community colleges, actually all of them, and almost all public four-year institutions offer night programs where you go once a week or once on the weekend. So find a couple of hours once a week.
Is there a website that you can do a search and figure out what kind of college is best for you?
There are a number of them. For example, U.S. World and News Report has a great website. The best way to do it, though, is if you know that you're place-bound. In other words, let's say you're working full-time, and as much as you'd love to go to that great college across the state, that's just not going to be reality right away. Start with your local community college. Just about every county will have one, and they'll be within a reasonable driving distance.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to worry about admissions, right? I mean, the community college is never going to not admit you?
They won't not admit you. You do need to have a high school degree or a GED. When you enter a community college, you may have to take some screening tests, and this is important. You want to do this.
You need minimum aptitude to
Minimum
be able
aptitude.
to handle the
Well,
coursework.
what'll happen, they won't not admit you. They may say, hey, before you can take English 101, you need to take, English 55. You need to take a
There is
course.
such a thing?
Yeah, to get your
101?
aptitude up.
That's
For
funny.
now.
They say won't not, and then we talk about English.
So, well, what I would love to know is we're talking about people who aren't teenagers or young 20s any longer. I've always heard about getting college credit for life experience. Could you please let us know what that entails and how does that help people?
Absolutely. Most colleges, not all, and it's important to check, have something called planned learning assessments, or PLAs. In some places, they're called CLEPs.
And please, what does CLEP stand for?
You have to delete that because I can't remember. But the planned learning, I can talk about planned learning assessment. So the planned learning assessment allows you to get college credit for your work and life experience. Typically, you either take a set of tests or you prepare a portfolio that demonstrates your knowledge. Now, you're still going to have to pay for the college credits, but you won't have to take a course. It'll allow you to get college credits toward your degree and get that degree a little faster.
Well, maybe I can get my PhD. I just submit all my past experiences.
Wow, you just will go smooth sailing right in.
It doesn't work quite that way for the PhD.
Write a check, get your PhD.
I don't think it works that way.
That would
Go
be
home that afternoon.
That would be one of those private for-profit schools.
Well, I actually have a friend who just started law school at 43, 44 years old.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Actually, no, I apologize. He's 46.
Okay. Very
So,
nice.
yeah.
What do
started law
people
school.
mostly take? If they're an adult, do they go back for law degrees or MBAs? What's common?
There's not any one thing that's common. People midlife when they're changing careers follow their passions. So somebody might have wound up in sales where they really wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And then at midlife, they may come to that point where they say, hey, I can do this, or I want to do this. Or they may have gone into teaching and really want to be in the medical field, want to be a nurse, want to be an ultrasound tech. So there's no one thing. It's about following your passion, about doing the work that you find meaningful.
Just to segue for that, we actually have a friend who how old was Mary when she got her teaching degree? I believe it was in her upper 40s or mid 40s.
I don't
she
know if
went
she
back.
wants you to tell everyone that.
Well, I don't think she knows. Nobody here knows who she is, right? That's us.
An anonymous
she was-
person.
She was a nurse,
Yes.
and she went back to school and got her and went into teaching and has been very happily teaching now for about last 10 years. But it's something that was definitely a change of life situation for going back to school to be a teacher.
And that's fantastic. And that's what going back to school is all about. It's about being more interested in the world, following the things you're passionate about. It's really good for your brain, too.
And it's like starting another life. You could have two lives in your one lifetime, two careers.
Absolutely. You can have 2 or 3. And people typically have more than one career now. We think of retirement as 65. But when the average life expectancy is 79 or 80, that's an awful lot of time that people have that they can do something interesting with. And a lot of people don't want to stop working at 65. They're still vibrant. They still want to be working and contributing to society in that way.
Speaking of getting older, I actually read several different places that when you challenge your brain, such as going back to college and a little later in life, you actually could prevent Alzheimer's from developing because of how you're using your brain. Is that true? Do you think it's so?
There's a lot of evidence. We can't say so definitively.
But
Like,
not
you can't
definitively.
say if you go back to college, you won't
Take
get
an
Alzheimer's.
educated guess.
But yes.
But as a professor, you may have heard about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of research out there that strongly suggests that continuing to learn through college courses, through art, through many different ways, continuing to challenge yourself.
Playing chess.
Playing chess is good for your brain. If you think of your brain as another muscle, you know, if you don't...
Even though it's an organ.
Even though it's an organ. If you think of your brain...
As a muscular organ.
As a muscular organ, in a sense. You know, like if you don't work out physically, if you know, you can get into poor physical shape. If you don't work out your brain, you can get into poor intellectual shape. But the good news is that anybody can start learning. And
What's a
anybody
great
can start-
brain exercise that people can do to prep themselves back into school? What action can they take?
Reading.
Okay.
Reading is fantastic. Taking non-credit courses. One thing you can do if you're scared to go back full-time and you're thinking, I'm not sure if I'm ready for a college course for credit, every community college has non-credit courses,
That they can
continuing
audit
education.
and
Well,
audit.
not even audit. Continuing education courses aren't credit-bearing. They don't have grades. You don't have to worry about someone marking you. But they're a great way to learn. They're typically very affordable. Many of them are under $100. They last from maybe 3 to 10 sessions, so they're not as long-term as a full semester. But they'll give someone a taste of what it's like to go back to school and to learn. And that's a great way to get started. It's also a great way to get comfortable on the college campus.
And
Right.
I think that that's all we have time for, but that's really helpful information to help someone overcome their trepidation and fear of changing their life and improving by going to a new career, by going back to college.
And becoming wealthy and happy.
And take care of the family even better. Thank you, Dr. Plichta. I
That's my
appreciate
pleasure.
you
Thank you so
coming down.
much.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
glad
you.
to be here.